I'm here to talk to you about this new performance program that we have at Sustainable Pittsburgh. First of all, is anybody familiar with Sustainable Pittsburgh? Have you heard of it before? Okay, I know you guys first. But Sustainable Pittsburgh is a nonprofit organization centered here in Pittsburgh, and we are focused on affecting decision-making in the Pittsburgh region to integrate economic prosperity, social equity, and environmental quality, bringing sustainable solutions to businesses and communities. So we have multiple performance programs, and this is a new one that we've just created and launched called Sustainable Pittsburgh Restaurant. A little bit about me, just to kind of let you all know. I'm familiar with the restaurant industry. I've worked in it for about half my life. I also was a teacher before for about 11 years and graduated from Duquesne with their MBA Sustainability program in August, and then started working on this at the beginning of November and October. So, anyway, this is what we're working on. So we've got a sustainability performance program that is providing recognition for leading restaurants in southwestern PA. So when we look at what a sustainable Pittsburgh restaurant is, it considers the environmental, economic, and social equity aspects of its operations. So looking at its food, water, and energy, water, and waste. Looking at the equity involving communities and consumers as well as its workers, and working to improve the regional farming economy, the restaurant industry, just our regional economy in Pittsburgh in general, and then also just looking at the profits and the savings that these restaurants do see from implementing these practices. So kind of breaking it down a little bit further, Sustainable Pittsburgh restaurants, they do good work for our region. They're gaining more business by demonstrating this goodwill and also saving money by cutting costs. They're positively contributing to our region through this restaurant community that they have created. So in order to become a sustainable Pittsburgh restaurant, this is kind of two options we have. So if a restaurant has already incorporated sustainable practices or if they're not yet sustainable. So if you're a restaurant who's already incorporating sustainable practices, the designation provides you a formal recognition to showcase these efforts and can guide you to higher sustainability performance levels. And if it's a restaurant that is not yet sustainable, it provides a flexible, versatile way to incorporate sustainable practices into restaurant operations. And there are also staff and resources available to assist. We've got other organizations that we're working with, different businesses. We have a resource bank that's built into the program to help connect restaurants with some of these things to support these actions. And there's also some more information and guides that are within the resource bank too. And then Bridgeway Capital, if anyone's familiar with them, Bridgeway Capital is a local Pittsburgh organization, and they provide low interest, low down payment financing for businesses who want to improve their equipment or appliances, or also just help provide more healthy foods. So in order to become a sustainable Pittsburgh restaurant, it's open to all restaurants within southwestern PA region, so not just focusing within the city, but within our whole 10-county region. So for a restaurant to gain this designation and become a sustainable Pittsburgh restaurant, it completes an online performance assessment, and it's evaluating how socially and environmentally responsible a restaurant is through its current business practices. There are a total of 149 actions. For each action, a restaurant provides a yes, no, or an NA response if it doesn't apply. And you do this by clicking a box. And once you click the box, there's another box that'll pop up, and that's where the validation statement comes in. This is a self-validated system. I know Jason talked about the Green Restaurant Designation or Green Restaurant Association certification earlier, and this is aimed to be kind of a stepping stone into the Green Restaurant certification. So this designation provides a lower barrier of entry, one that we designed specifically for our region. And it just makes it a lot more accessible and adaptable and flexible for restaurants. So in regards to the validation, when it comes to with the Green Restaurant Association, it's a little more stringent when it comes to validating their claims. But for us, we're using a self-declared validation statements, and those are outlined within the designation, which we can talk more about this later. So what's in the performance assessment? So when we look at what we have in there, we've got 7 different categories. We have a waste reduction category, so looking at things like recycling, buying things in bulk, and what kind of takeout containers are being used. Water conservation, so doing things like not thawing food under running water, pre-soaking dishes, maybe putting aerators in hand washing sinks. Energy efficiency, looking at lighting, powering down the kitchen appliances during cutting down that idle time, and keeping your HVAC clean with those coils. Looking at people, that's kind of looking at donating excess food or kitchen equipment, what people are doing to volunteer, and what kind of training you're offering your employees. So, responsible sourcing is stemmed around buying from local farms or businesses, perhaps looking at seasonal menu items or humanely raised animal products. And nutrition might cover things like offering half portions or vegetarian vegan fare, and some options for children's meals, healthy options for children's meals. So the dish on the performance assessment. So the performance assessment, as I said before, is flexible and adaptable. It's accessible to any restaurant, so if you're doing things like recycling and donating food and buying some things locally, this provides a way to give some recognition. A restaurant is able to freely choose the actions that are completed through the designation. So there are 149 total actions, but you can choose which ones you would like to implement. The actions are rated with a point scale from 1 through 5. It's based on things like the time that it was required to implement the practice, or resources, the amount of effort that's involved, if there's any money involved in order to make these things happen, and also considering the impacts of these operations. Things that are 1 are like behavior changes, something like not thawing your food under running water, like I already talked about. And things that are 5 are going to be things that are a lot more involved, or things that have larger impacts, perhaps like composting or donating leftover food to people in underserved communities. Is my voice going in and out with this thing? Okay, sounds like it's okay. So as I said before, we do have the self-declared validation statements, and that's how the actions are backed up from a restaurant. The requirements, as I said before, are listed with each criteria. Sometimes it might be listing products, sometimes it might be typing a testament or just copying a statement that has already been in, but those are things that are typed in by people completing the assessment. So as for completing the assessment, it can be completed by the owner or manager or any single employee or a group of employees. To make things, first of all, just sharing the workload of the assessment, and also just trying to get more people engaged at what is going on within the restaurant and these changes that you're trying to take on. And then we just ask that once though it can be completed by a group of employees, the assessment at the final stages has to be given a final validation from the restaurant owner or manager. And that's done, we have a system set up for that where you provide an online signature. So the total score of the assessment is what is equal to the level of sustainable Pittsburgh restaurant designation that is achieved. So we've got 5 different levels of designation. There is a starter, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum plate, and these are the different point values for each level. So in order to get to the starter level, to figure out the base level, I kind of went through and ran through and chose each of the behavior change operations. So anything that was really a 1, that's just a change of behavior that can have these big impacts. And then we, from there, went to look at, okay, what are some other things that most restaurants are already doing, and also considering, some things that might be, I guess, the easier actions to take on from the beginning to kind of give people an entryway into the sustainable pathway. So that's kind of where we came with the baseline of 60 points as the entry point. So when we look at these next slides here, I'm going to look at each category that kind of gives a sense of why it's important, and then also shows a couple criteria from the assessment so you can kind of get an idea of what they are, and it also shows that the point value and then an example of the validation statement that comes with it. And I also have full copies of the criteria if anybody would like to take a look at those as well. So when we look at for waste reduction, so I know we've talked a lot about waste reduction today, and when we talk about our total food loss per day just from U.S. full-service restaurants, that's upwards of almost 50 million pounds each day. So there are ways that restaurants can save money by cutting down on their pre-consumer and post-consumer waste, lowering their waste disposal fees, and then there are also some incentives that can be received as well. So, and there are ways that restaurants, and I know this was something that was talked about earlier, I think I might have read in the pamphlet, but just donating or selling your cooking oil is another way that you can increase profits. So, looking at water conservation. So the average full-service restaurant consumes about 5,800 gallons of water each day. So one easy way to cut down on this is installing aerators. Hand sinks can use up to 10 gallons of water per minute. So by installing those low flow aerators, that kind of can cut down on the water flow within your hand washing sinks, and still help it enable you to see some big savings. Another way is to install a high efficiency pre-rinse sprayer. They cost about $70. They can save about 60 gallons of water over an hour and saving you about $1,000 annually. And they're actually designed to work just as good or better than standard ones. So there isn't really any loss in efficiency there with these pre-rinse sprayers. And additionally, since I think it was in 2006 that they mandated that they all have to be high efficiency pre-rinse sprayers. So if any pre-rinse sprayer after 2006 is automatically going to be a high efficiency sprayer. Anything beforehand though could be changed out, and it's definitely something worth doing. So looking at energy efficiency, so energy and water use and water consumption are something that go hand in hand. Because if you think about your hot water, it takes energy to heat that water, and the dishwasher is using a lot of hot water. So cutting back water use at that dishwasher is cutting down on the energy that's required to heat it. And so there's also another way to save money outside of that, just with tax incentives and rebates that are offered when looking at energy efficient practices. Additionally, diners are, so looking at people. So when we look at the restaurant industry, and I guess just as an aside, this is one way in which this program, we've created this program to kind of distinguish itself from others that do exist within the country. There is the national certification that was talked about earlier, and then there are other cities that have developed similar programs, but most of them focus primarily on the environmental side, and we wanted to do something a little bit different and look more at the people aspect. So within the people category of it, there are actions that focus on the community and consumer, and then also the employees. So looking at restaurants to help with things like providing education, access to foods, just improving the working standards within the industry. So these are just some of the things that are covered. So again, backing people. So looking at the restaurant industry, is the second largest private sector employer in the U.S. So it's got a vast reach. It can help to feed a lot of hungry people. It can do a lot to uplift the working standards and build more respect for the industry itself. Diners are also growing more concerned with what restaurants are doing to help with these things. The National Restaurant Association just said that the majority of consumers are more interested in restaurants' treatment of employees, involvement in the community, and the handling of ethical and environmental issues now more than ever. So when we look at sourcing, people want local food. So 7 out of 10 consumers would be more likely to visit a restaurant that offers locally produced menu items. I think these are some of the things we've also talked about today. And more than 6 out of 10 said a locally sourced menu are key attributes that they look for when choosing a restaurant. So these are things that consumers and guests are wanting. And so, again, we talk about the trends. It's also something that is seen, local sourcing is on the top 10 trends. And restaurants are sourcing locally are up by 73%. So restaurants are recognizing the need to do this. And then the last part we're going to talk about, the last category, is nutrition. So we look at nutrition and why it's important. We look at our obesity rates. Obesity rates in adults have more than doubled, and then in children since the 1970s, and quadrupled in adolescents. So there are some reasons for this with the sugar and calorie intake, food choices, portion sizes. Those all kind of go in and contribute to this factor. And we look at our specific obesity rate in Pittsburgh, it's almost 30%, so almost a third of our population is obese. And so restaurants can do a lot to help these things by providing healthier options and just and also using that as kind of a caveat to educate people about healthier food options as well. Another note just about this, when it comes to the nutrition category, if a restaurant is located within Allegheny County and certain criteria are fulfilled within this nutrition section, then a restaurant, along with the Sustainable Pittsburgh designation, can also earn Live Well Allegheny restaurant designation as well. So the cost for this program, there is no cost for this program for its first year. So starting July, we just launched like a week and a half ago. So until July of next year, there's no cost. After that, there's going to be a $75 a year fee, so it's a pretty nominal fee. These are some things that the restaurants do receive with their designation. So you'll get an online restaurant profile that includes some basic restaurant info. And this profile is accessible to the public through a restaurant finder that's built into the website. Which I kind of talk about right there with the names and links to profiles and listings and a map. So when a restaurant, if they would see the name of your restaurant, or consumer, if would see the name of your restaurant, they'd click on that and they'd get this profile. Within there it would have all your information, your assessment results with just the yes responses. You know, we're only worried about giving positive recognition. And then your validation statements. So whatever a restaurant said to back up the claim that they were making. Also has a photo of the restaurant front, just to kind of help consumers identify and find your restaurant. And also a photo of the owner-manager, just kind of making things a little bit more transparent. And also there's a resource bank, which I talked a little bit about earlier, so that's something else that we'll have available to restaurants to help complete this. And this is, again, not at all a system where it's, you know, you do it and you're left on your own to take care of this. You know, we have staff that are available to support. I'm there to help, so this is what I'm doing all the time. And then also a promo kit to showcase accomplishments. So that might be, you know, in addition to the logo, the window decal that restaurants would get, there might be some decals or stickers you can put on your menus to show your designation, a press release that you could send out, and just different files of things that can be used to help promote your restaurant and its designation. And I know this is something that Andrew showed earlier, but this is kind of why a restaurant would want to earn this designation. So after you've heard all these things all day, you might be thinking, you know, outside of the reasons we've already heard, but why a restaurant might want to do this and might want to earn this designation. So, you know, there are ways to cut costs. By increasing your water and energy efficiency, owners can save an estimated 10 to 20% on their utility bills annually, and then also lower their greenhouse gas emissions. Profits can be increased by cutting your food waste through tax incentives, rebates, and attracting more guests with this designation. Also have happier employees, you know, improving your staff productivity, morale, and reducing employee turnover, reducing that food waste, so cutting your waste disposal costs, reducing methane emissions, and also working to feed hungry people, which, you know, is important to everyone. Looking at government regulations, there are cities throughout the U.S. who have banned the use of polystyrene for containers, as well as some that have mandated the composting of pre-consumer food waste. You know, that's kind of just staying ahead of the game is always a good thing to do. There's free publicity, along with the window decal, which I talked a little bit about, our logo usage, some online and print marketing, social media activity, the program, not restaurants, but the program participating in events, as well as, you know, your restaurant profiles. And additionally, you know, we're going to have some mass marketing efforts aimed to push diners to these establishments. I was on a radio interview this morning on WESA, so that was pretty neat. And then last week we had a couple in Next Pittsburgh, and then also in the Trib, and I think Pittsburgh Business Times, we're going to have a feature next week too. So it's kind of working on getting the word out pretty early here. Again, so looking at the top 10 food trends, if we look at those food trends, there are actions aimed at all 10 of those food trends. So by a restaurant implementing this system, you have the potential to hit all top 10 of those food trends by whichever actions you choose. Just again, making it so you can stand out as a leader, gaining positive public recognition, and being part of a united group of restaurants that have formed a community in their industry, working to improve the Pittsburgh region. So why is sustainability important within the restaurant industry? So the restaurant industry is a powerhouse. So as like we'd said before, it's the second largest private sector employee. 40% of the industry food share dollar comes from there, over $700 billion in annual sales. And looking at what comes from the farm to fork, so we can see that it takes half of the land that is used is for agricultural purposes, for the restaurant industry specifically. 80% of the fresh water is used for the restaurant industry specifically. And then 40% of that food is going uneaten. And I know a fact we've heard a couple times today is that 1 in 6 Americans are food insecure, but when you look at workers within just the restaurant industry, 1 in 3 workers within the food and restaurant industry are food insecure, which is another reason why that people aspect is important. So why sustainability in Pittsburgh restaurants? There are a couple reasons for that. I know Jason hates the word trend, but there's this, I guess it's not really a trend, it is a movement to change, I think, ultimately for the better, for, you know, forevermore, for indefinitely. But so there is this whole movement towards sustainability in restaurant. When we look at Pittsburgh and our place, you know, we're well positioned to embrace this trend. We've recently been named one of the top 10 cities for foodies on 2 different lists, as well as the next destination food town. We have restaurants, new restaurants opening all the time. So there are multiple reasons why Pittsburgh is a good place for this program. And it's also a distinguishing element for restaurants and our city. So I know we kind of, Jason pretty much is a case study for sustainability with everything he said earlier with the Green Restaurant Association. But this is another restaurant that has the Green Restaurant Association certification. And these are some things that they've done. They went through, they eliminated styrofoam, changed the pre-rinse spray valves to conserve water, switched from wax candles, solar powered candles, put in motion centers in the bathrooms, changed out light bulbs, recycled and composted, and took the paper towels out and put energy saving hand dryers in. And so over the year, they were able to save $1,300 a year by switching the hand dryer, $19 a light bulb, saving them, although they're $19 light bulbs, save them $25 a year in energy costs. So right there, within a year, they're getting the cost back for that high cost LED light bulb. And then you're also able to cut garbage collection by almost 50%. This was one that was in the UK, and they've implemented something similar to, but not exactly like, Lean Path, which Andrew had talked about somewhat earlier, but it's a similar food waste audit system, and there's this kind of goes to show in which systems like Lean Path have the power to do, and just by cutting your food waste has the power to do. So they're able to reduce their food waste by 30% just within that 4-week period. And as Andrew said, you know, things tend to remain the same, so if it's started that way within that 4-week period, they save 30%, and that's just going to also continue. So these are just some facts about the restaurant industry that we may not know. So just kind of present you all with those. And when we look at water, almost half of it's coming from the kitchen. So by implementing these water efficient practices, we can reduce operating costs and energy by 10 and 15%. The amount of This is kind of interesting. So when it comes to energy, the amount of energy that's consumed in a kitchen is 5 more times higher than in the rest of the building. So that's why energy efficiency within kitchens is so important. And so what can a restaurant do? So if you're a restaurant and you're in Pittsburgh, you can become a sustainable Pittsburgh restaurant. You can save money, increase your profits, and make a positive impact in our region by joining a movement towards this more sustainable restaurant community. So here is my contact info. As I said, I do have the criteria up here. Up at the door, there are some info cards you can take about the program. My business card is also up there. If anybody wants to set up time to meet, we can email and we can do that. Yeah, I'm open for whatever you all, if you need any help. Yeah, anybody have any questions about anything or any clarification?
If you have more than one location, you have to go through the online process twice.
What do you mean?
If you would have...
Oh. I would say yes. I would say yes. But if you are implementing it, I guess that's something to think about for the future. This is just our first year. But something to think about perhaps for the future would be, to kind of streamline if there are multiple locations. If you do it the same way in each restaurant instead of having to do the assessment separately. But yes, it would be something that would have to be done separately. But I guess if you're implementing it, making it the standard at one place, then you could take it to your other location and just implement those same standards so it wouldn't be as lengthy to fill out.
Certification apply to like coffee cafes, or is it just like full service restaurant?
It doesn't have to be a full service restaurant. Any place that's serving food. So if you have a kitchen and you're making food at your coffee cafe, then you can do it.
So you have to have a commercial kitchen there?
Well, you have to be making food. Like there has to be an aspect of food preparation and food making happening there. I mean, if it's something where you're bringing in food and then just selling it out, there are just a lot of things that wouldn't apply because you're not operating as a kitchen in any way, but we can take a look at it. We can take a look at your specific business model and see how it can adapt to it if you like.
So basically, the convection oven, you're preparing food, so you should be okay then.
What's that?
It's just like a convection oven, you're preparing things, that will work.
Right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, does anybody want to take a look at all the criteria? This is also available on the website as well. You can download the PDF from there. Okay. All right, thank you guys.